Uh-oh, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. The judge just declared that you must unseal all your third-party communication. Could that be why Hugh Jackman is apparently ghosting Ryan Reynolds? Sorry, Blake and Ryan. Nope. You don't get special celebrity privileges. Nope. You must unseal all this stuff. The third-party communications, etc., which could mean Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds, all that stuff. It's all going to come, and it's all coming Tuesday. It's subtle at first. A missed text here, a cold shoulder there. But those close to them can feel the tension. Hugh's been unusually quiet around Ryan lately. People are whispering he's stepping back for his own sanity.
Ryan Reynolds is freaking out in real time, and the reason is painfully simple. The protections are gone. A judge stepped in and stripped away the celebrity cushioning, ordering the full unsealing of third-party communications. With that single move, private texts, emails, and messages were dragged into the open, not just between the main players, but across agents, studios, and outside figures who were never meant to be part of the public record. Once secrecy vanished, control vanished with it, exposing behavior that could no longer be managed, spun, or quietly buried from public view.
Party private privacy interests. Unseal. Look at all these third-party private. Unseal. Unsealing all the third-party privacy. Taylor's text, Ryan's text, all of that could fall into these issues. And this is all going to be in those motions for summary judgment.
The deadline wasn't vague or flexible. Everything had to be refiled by Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, with public oral arguments scheduled for Thursday. That timeline mattered because it left no room to spin, stall, or quietly massage the narrative before it was dragged into the daylight.
Look, oral arguments in the Wayfarer Party's motion for summary judgment and Lively's motion for spoliation sanctions is scheduled for next Thursday, January 22nd.
What followed was brutal and honestly kind of funny if you're watching from the outside. Ryan Reynolds lost narrative control for the first time in years. This is a guy who usually runs the joke before the joke runs at him, pre-packaging his image with witty tweets and self-aware humor. That strategy collapsed the moment a judge made it clear that private behavior was about to be read out loud in public. When texts and emails are unsealed, sarcasm doesn't save you, charm doesn't save you, and marketing definitely doesn't save you.
The public has a right to attend that argument and to follow along based on the unredacted summary judgment and spoliation materials. That is, the extent continued sealing of materials cannot be justified. Ba-bing, ba-bing, ba-bing.
Within 48 hours, the industry reaction shifted, and this part matters. No one rushed to defend him. There were no loyalty posts flooding social media, no public show of solidarity. Instead, people went quiet, or quietly stepped back. Tolerance turned into visible distancing almost overnight. That's how Hollywood really votes, not with statements, but with silence. Once the order landed, you could almost feel the phones stop ringing. That's what a real meltdown looks like. Not screaming in public, but losing the invisible shield that keeps consequences at bay.
The fact that she's been trying to do this is so shady, that she thinks she's above everything. Oh, this person shouldn't be involved. Girl, you started all this. You knew it was.
Then came the part that really rattled him. Hugh Jackman went silent. No returned calls, no answered texts, no joint appearances, no playful banter to soothe the fans. Hugh simply stepped out of frame. It wasn't subtle if you were paying attention. A planned public outing at Sutton Foster's Cabaret went forward without Ryan anywhere near it. Hugh showed up solo. That single image did more damage than 1,000 gossip posts ever could.
Darlings, grab your popcorn. Hollywood's ultimate bromance might be hitting a speed bump. Sources tell Rob, that Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, kings of red carpet selfies and snappy banter, are showing cracks behind those perfectly polished smiles. An insider whispered.
Insiders began saying the obvious part out loud. Ryan was the one reaching out.
calling, texting, trying to set plans and keep the routine alive, Hugh was disengaging. And no, this wasn't about being busy. The reason being cited was legal exposure, possible depositions, ongoing litigation, real consequences. Hugh didn't want to be anywhere near a situation where his name, his messages, or even an offhand comment could end up preserved in a courtroom transcript.
Texting, calling, even trying to set plans, but Hugh just hasn't been returning his calls. Case in point, the duo were set to catch Sutton Foster's cabaret together. That's his new partner. But Hugh went solo, leaving Ryan and the gang hanging. At the root of the drama, apparently it ties back to Ryan and Blake's ongoing legal battle with Justin Baldoni.
This matters because Hugh Jackman wasn't just a friend, he was the safest friend. The brand-friendly bromance studios love to sell. Years of jokes, interviews, and mutual hype turned into marketing gold. And now that exact relationship became a liability. Hugh choosing distance wasn't emotional, it was strategic. He read the room, he saw what unsealed evidence does to people, and he decided not to be next. When the first major ally disengages, others take notes. Hollywood noticed. People always do. This was the first visible crack in the wall, and it didn't come from critics or lawyers. It came from someone who knew exactly when to walk away.
Got to be on top of how the judge is asking these questions. What's he saying? What's the verdict going to be in this? And then there's talks of a settlement talk happening that same day, later that afternoon. So I'm going to be there. I'm flying out. I'm doing it. I bought the ticket. I will be there. So I will be there. Court of Random Opinion. Lauren's going to be there as well. So you're going to want to watch us live on Thursday as a report from the courtroom in the freezing Manhattan.
Now, layer Marvel on top of all of this, because that's where the pressure multiplies. Marvel Studios began reassessing internal exposure tied to Deadpool and Wolverine, and that word is doing a lot of work. It means meetings, legal teams, risk charts. What was supposed to be a celebratory return suddenly started to look like a liability review. Hugh Jackman was no longer being discussed in terms of promotion or press tours, but in terms of possible deposition. That's a wild shift. One minute you're the beloved Wolverine, the next you're a name on a list of people lawyers want to question. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds was reportedly sidelined from future creative input discussions. Think about that. The guy who built his brand on control and cleverness was suddenly no longer steering the ship.
Buttoning up their whole case. They're being so much more professional now to ensure that it's all released the proper way in court. And so Tuesday, get excited. I think we're going to get some damning stuff on Tuesday again.
Project delays only made things worse. The SAG strike overlap had already stalled momentum, and the added layer of legal uncertainty weighed everything down. Studios hate uncertainty, and they hate surprises even more. Once a project carries unresolved legal noise, it stops being fun and starts being dangerous. What was meant to be a victory lap for the MCU shifted into containment mode. Not expansion, not celebration, just damage control meetings and carefully chosen language. And this is where the roast writes itself. Ryan wanted to be the center of everything, the joke, the heart, the voice. Instead, the spotlight turned clinical. Lawyers replaced marketers, silence replaced banter, and the meltdown wasn't loud. It was procedural, scheduled, time-stamped, and unfolding in real time.
And she spent so much money, wasted so much time, harassed so many people to try to get to the point, and now it's all going to come out. And I want to stress, look at this. Thursday, January 22nd, that's this Thursday, this week, the public has a right to attend that argument and to follow along based on the unredacted summary judgment and spoliation materials.
Here's where the whole thing stops being funny and starts being embarrassing. Once the texts came out, it became painfully clear that Ryan wasn't just involved, he was directing traffic, like a control tower on caffeine. The newly unsealed communications show him aggressively drafting messages for other people, not suggestions, not light edits, full-on scripts. He wasn't saying, "This is my opinion." He was saying, "Here's what you'll say and when you'll say it."
I'm on a shoot right now. Want me to call you after? Sure. Zero pressure. We could chat tomorrow. And sigh. Ugh, I'm sorry, Ryan. Working on his set was truly one of the worst days of my life, but it's survivable and I'll help. Call me anytime tomorrow. Even she's not like making it sound that bad, that they just don't like him. I think that's really the vibe I get.
He tried to script statements for agents, Sony executives, cast members, and even media outlets, which is wild because that's 4 different groups with 4 different interests. Yet somehow he expected them all to sound like the same angry diary entry. He demanded full-throated apologies on strict timelines, as if this were a hostage negotiation instead of a film dispute. Tuesday by this hour, today before the press, now or else. The obsession with timing is almost impressive if it weren't so unhinged. What starts as persuasion quickly turns into pressure, then slides straight into coercion. You can see it escalate line by line. First he asks nicely, then he insists, then he rewrites, then he threatens consequences. This isn't leadership, it's panic dressed up as confidence. Multiple meetings stretched to 5 hours at a time, insane for adults who claim to be professionals. Raised voices were reported, intimidation was claimed. People left those rooms stunned, not convinced.
Struggling. And we're learning this from the stuff we have seen unsealed of just how mean Ryan is behind the scenes to get his way. I'm disgusted by it. I got to be honest. It is shameful. This dude needs like a mean rehab or something to like really get in touch. Like, you're out of touch, bro.
And here's the funniest part. This is the same guy who built a brand on being the chill, funny one, the nice guy with the wink at the camera. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, he's running marathon meetings, rewriting everyone's homework, and demanding emotional performances on command. That's not charm, that's control issues with a press pass. These texts didn't just shift the narrative, they expose the obsession. This is where power abuse stops being whispered and starts being documented. Once the seal was lifted, WME, Sony Pictures, and multiple producers stopped playing along. They pushed back explicitly, not quietly. Internal records show clear disagreement with Ryan's narrative and tactics. And that matters because it proves the silence before wasn't agreement, it was containment.
You've protected my wife from so much and so often, and I'm protecting her. And in protecting her, you've also preserved the film and its ability to not only work commercially, but achieve a second and possibly better objective, giving voice to a vital issue affecting so many people. No matter what, you have a lifelong supply of admiration, respect, and friendship from me. If there's any way I can pay it forward anytime, say the word and I'll show up for you.
Sony executives later confirmed genuine surprise and real discomfort during key meetings. Not mild confusion, not creative differences, actual discomfort. That word keeps coming up for a reason. People weren't prepared for the tone, the length, or the intensity. Third-party witnesses contradicted the claim that everyone was on board. In fact, several accounts directly challenged the idea of universal support. That myth evaporated the moment the paperwork went public. For months, these objections were sealed, hidden behind black bars and legal language. Once unsealed, they exploded publicly because context finally existed. You could see the pattern instead of isolated moments. You could track how often people pushed back, resisted being told what to say, and how often they were ignored. Ryan's whole strategy relied on the assumption that no one would ever see this side of the process. He banked on power fatigue, on people choosing convenience over confrontation. That works until a judge removes the cover. Hollywood is very good at pretending not to notice things. It's terrible at pretending once documents are public.
Here, look, he says all parties who submitted the materials shall refile them in accordance with this order by Wednesday, the 21st of this week. That's in 2 days, by 1 p.m. Eastern. So that's 1 p.m. Boom. You can imagine.
What makes this brutal is that the pushback didn't come from outsiders. It came from his own ecosystem. His agency, the studio, the producers, the very people who normally protect stars from themselves. When those groups stop nodding and start documenting, the game is over. This isn't cancellation. This is accountability catching up at the speed of email. Hugh Jackman choosing survival over loyalty is the quietest and smartest move in this entire saga. His divorce announcement in September 2023 is now being re-examined under a completely different light. At the time, it was framed as personal. Now, it sits on a timeline that overlaps with lawsuit escalation, production pauses, and mounting rumor pressure. That timing isn't subtle anymore.
Another insider chuckled, Ryan's jokes online are still sharp, but in private, he's visibly frustrated. Hugh's given him the cold shoulder. You can see this. This is why I believe this. In those interviews he does, you can see he is struggling. He is struggling.
September 2023 lands right in the middle of everything heating up. Legal stress rising, filming complications stacking, public speculation growing louder. In that environment, Jackman's PR strategy shifts. The duo branding fades. The joint jokes disappear. The focus turns inward, solo. Image protection becomes the priority, not shared damage control. What really stands out is that Jackman reportedly refuses to participate in messaging coordination. No drafting, no group statements, no let's all say the same thing. That refusal isn't accidental. It's a boundary. He understands what happens when you let someone else write your words during a legal storm. Silence becomes the safest option.
What happened in that courtroom? Because this one feels important to me. This one feels important to me where I feel like we got to be on top of how the judge is asking these questions. What's he saying? What's the verdict going to be in this? And then there's talks of a settlement talk happening that same day, later that afternoon.
And in this case, silence is louder than anything he could have said. Every missed call, every skipped appearance, every unanswered text sends the same message without risking a transcript. He isn't fighting. He isn't defending. He isn't explaining. He is stepping out of the blast radius. This is where loyalty gets tested, not in public declarations, but in private risk. Jackman chose survival. He chose distance, and that choice exposes just how radioactive the situation had become when a decades-long friendship turns into a legal liability. The smart move is to walk away quietly. Ryan, meanwhile, is left doing what he does worst, talking too much, reaching too hard, trying to control people who have already decided to protect themselves. Jackman's silence isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation, and the fact that it hurts this much tells you everything about how dependent Ryan had become on that alliance.
At a touch, bro. Just because you got all this money and clout and attention doesn't mean you're, above the law in a way. My God, dude. Hugh's given him the cold shoulder. First they lost Taylor Swift, now Hugh Jackman too. One friend sighed to me, Hollywood loves a bromance, but even the best friendships can crack under the pressure.
Every move since then has reflected caution. No shared interviews, no playful exchanges, no joint damage control, just distance. That decision signals fear of subpoenas, transcripts, and strict timelines. It also marks a collapse of trust. When survival instincts kick in, friendships become optional and legal math takes over completely. Nothing about that is accidental or friendly at this stage. Once the unsealing order hit, something in Ryan Reynolds snapped, and it was visible almost immediately across platforms. His online behavior grew erratic, not chaotic in a funny way, but twitchy, reactive, restless. This wasn't the confident silence of someone letting lawyers work. This was the digital pacing of someone who cannot stand not being in control of the conversation. Posts appeared faster. Replies felt rushed. Timing was off. And when timing is off, humor dies first.
People magazine had the exclusive that Blake is hiring blah, 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 I can't say, a lawyer ahead of the trial. Actress has brought on Sigrid McCauley, known for representing Jeffrey's accusers, her legal fight with Heads Up.
Defensiveness became the baseline tone. Every response sounded like it was written to preempt criticism rather than address reality. Instead of letting facts speak for themselves, he tried to explain around them. Deflection followed immediately. If people questioned behavior, the response was never about substance. It was always about misunderstanding, bad faith, or unfairness. Over-explanation became the tell. When someone who used to land a joke in one line starts writing paragraphs to justify vibes, you know the wheels are wobbling. The jokes stop working. That is the clearest signal of all. What used to read as self-aware now read like a press release wearing a grin. Punchlines felt like shields. Sarcasm felt forced. The audience could tell the difference. Humor only works when it's optional. Here, it felt necessary. Necessary humor is just damage control with better lighting. People stopped laughing and started asking why he was trying so hard.